Hey kiddos, it's Mrs. Rudd giving you a quick hand with your study guide for your test that you have coming up. And we are going to look at using ratios and proportions to solve problems that involve measurement conversions. We'll do a couple problems from this page. And we're also going to look at those same strategies to solve problems that involve percent. So let's start by taking a look at this problem here. Here, number 1 is asking you to determine how many yards there are in 213 feet. And the conversion rate, which honestly, in most of your other problems, this is here. We just forgot to put it in this one. But 1 yard is 3 feet. And that's something that you have in your notes. So we could look at that. If we were looking at the ratio between yards and feet, we could say that's a 1-to-3 ratio. So the question is asking us how many yards there are in 213 feet. So we need to decide what we did to this 3 to make it a 213. What did you multiply by? So we're going to come over here and say, well, what is 213 divided by 3? Because that will give us the factor that we multiplied it by. I can take 3 away from 21 7 times. Oh, sorry, that should be a 3. I can take 3 away from 3 once. So I must have multiplied 3 times 71 to get to 213. And in order to write an equivalent ratio, I need to multiply that times 71. And anything times 1 is just itself. So the correct answer is 71. There are 71 yards in 213 feet. Let's do the same thing and I don't know, let's take a look at number 4. Number 4 is asking us to determine the length of an insect. So it tells us here an insect is 2.5 inches long. We're going to write a proportion to help us find the length in centimeters of that insect. Well, the ratio or the relationship between inches and centimeters is that 1 inch is 2.54 centimeters. So we can take that relationship, or we can take that information, and we can figure out how many centimeters long an insect is if they are 2.5 inches long. And this one's even easier to see than the other one, because here to go from 1 to 2.5, we had to multiply by a factor of 2.5. So we're going to come down here and do the same thing. And really this math is Unit 1 math. The thing that makes it Unit 2 is that you're organizing the information into a chart like this. So let's take that 2.54 and we're going to multiply by 2.5. 5 times 4 is 20. That's 25 plus 2 is 27. 5 times 2 is 10 plus 2 is 12. We'll hold our place with a 0. And get rid of those numbers here. 2 times 4 is 8. There's nothing to regroup. 2 times 5 is 10. 2 times 2 is 4 plus 1 is 5. So there's a 0. 15, regroup a 1. Now, when I look back at my factors, I had 3 decimal digits. So I should have 3 decimal digits in my product. And I'm just going to write here the 6.35. You could include that 0 right here, but it's not really necessary because it doesn't change the value of our number. So that insect would be 6.35 inches long. Let's take a peek at a couple of the percent problems. I'm going to turn here to the back of that first page. And let's take a look at, let's take a look at number 13. David gives 4 out of every $10 he earns from his allowance to charity. What percent of his allowance does he give to charity? Well, the first thing I want to draw your attention to right here is it's asking what percent. Now, you can use a model to solve this. In fact, there's a lot of ways that you could solve this problem. But because our unit is about proportional reasoning, I'm going to encourage you to use a proportion to solve this problem. Now I want you to remember that our percent proportion is always percent over 100 equals part over total. And in fact, you could write that the other way. Because these two things are equal, it's an equation. You could also say that part over total is the percent out of 100. They're the exact same thing. You're just changing what's to the left or to the right of the equal sign. Well, when I go back up and I look at this problem, I know it's saying what percent. So I'm going to be trying to find the percent. And I think the proportion is easier to see when you have that part on the right side of the equal sign. So here, David gives 4 of every $10. $4 would be the part, $10 would be the total. And when you can identify that information, it makes it a lot easier to tell where it's going to go in your proportion. So 4 out of 10 equals something over 100. And when you have it set up like that, it's pretty easy to tell what you did to 10 to make it a 100. You multiplied by 10. So here, you have to do the same thing to 4. Oh, sorry. And you have to multiply that 4 by 10. Well, 4 times 10 is 40. So he saves 40% of his allowance. Let's take a look at 2 more. I'm going to look at I'm trying to figure out a good one. Let's take a look at number 17. No, I'm sorry. Let's take a look at one of the missing percent. One of the ones, like this guy right here. Let's take a look at, well, you know what, I don't think we need to do that because we just did a missing percent. So never mind. Let me rethink that one for a second. I'm going to go back to my original plan, and we're going to take a look at number 17. That says, what is 60% of 35? These are kind of where we started with our percent problems. So again, we're going to use that proportion. You can use a model. There's not a reason why you can't, but it's not the most efficient way. So if you want to use a model, you can. We'll get the same answer. Otherwise, we can use that proportion, that percent over 100 is part over total. And right here, when I look at my problem, oops, this is my percent. And where it says of 35, I know that is the total. So let's take a look. 60 over 100 equals something, we're going to be finding the part, over 35. Now it's not very easy for me to tell what I did to 100 to make it a 35. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to use a table with equivalent ratios. Kind of play our little leapfrog thing here. So right now what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find a number that's going to play nicely with 100 and with 35. And I know that the number that's going to play nicely with both of them is a 5. So now, to go from 100 to 5, I'm trying to scale this and use equivalent ratios. I had to divide by 20. In order to keep these as equivalent ratios, I need to do the same thing to 60. Well, 60 divided by 20 is 3. As a reduced ratio, that's a 3 to 5 amount. So now I'm just going to scale back up here. To go from 5 to 35, I had to multiply by 7. So when I multiply 3 by 7, I get a 21. So 60% of 35 is 21. And let's do one more together. That one we knew the total. Let me look for one that is an unknown total. Let me look here. Oh, here's a good one. Number 14. The biggest clue, and you know what, actually, I'm trying to decide if I want to do 14 or 12. I'll tell you what, I'm going to tell you that 12 is an unknown total, just to kind of give you a little clue, but I'm going to solve number 14. the strategy that we use for 14 will also work on number 12. So here it says 16 is 20% of what number? Right here, these are clue words that you do not know the total. This is an unknown total problem. So when we use that percent proportion, the percent out of 100 is going to be the part over the total. And the total is the unknown amount. This is what we're going to be leaving empty because that's what we need to find. Well, in the problem here, 20 is the percent. So that's the number that I have out of 100. 20 out of 100 is 16 out of something. So I can't really tell what I did to 20 to make it a 16. So I'm going to use a table with equivalent ratios to see if I can, oh, I'm sorry, I parked that 16 in the wrong spot. Hey, it's an easy thing to do. 16 needs to be up there. Anyways, I'm going to use a table of equivalent ratios to see if I can scale this to determine what my missing amount is. So I want a number that plays really nicely with 20 and 16. And I think the best number to use for these two is going to be a 4. So I'm going to use 4 as my go-between number here. To go from 20 to 4, I had to divide by 5. And I'm going to do the same thing here to 100. 100 divided by 5 is 20. Now to go from 4 to 16, I had to multiply by 4. So to keep these ratios equivalent, I need to multiply that bottom term by 4 as well, and 20 times 4 is 80. So, there it is. 16 is 20% of 80. Hopefully that kind of helped you feel like you're ready to practice and complete your study guide. Remember, a completed study guide is worth extra credit on your test. And on the back of your study guide, you can scan this QR code and see what the correct answers to your study guide are so that you can check your work and practice proficiently. See you Monday, kiddos. Have a good weekend.